You know, quite frankly, I'm surprised. This is an unexpected turnout for the day following T-Day. We have 75 here this morning, which really is surprising to me. I don't know what the hell you're clapping for. You guys must really be hard up to have nothing better to do than come here on a holiday weekend. But that's a good thing. That's a good thing because, you know, the men and women that are out there serving our nation with boots on the ground overseas, they're who we're here to honor today. And believe me, they will be most appreciative of your dedicated support. So thanks to each of you for your presence here this morning. You know, speaking of Thanksgiving here in America, are you aware that the United States military is largely responsible for bringing Thanksgiving to the forefront as a national holiday? Let me give you a little history on that. You know, for most of us, Thanksgiving is a hallowed American tradition, and it's generally filled with family and food and football, fun, friends. But just to let you in on a little known fact, we can attribute the creation of Thanksgiving largely to the military. Now, while conventional wisdom dates the first Thanksgiving back to 1621, when pilgrims in Plymouth, Massachusetts, joined in with local Native Americans to celebrate the fall harvest. It wasn't a celebration that continued from year to year. In fact, Thanksgiving didn't really become any kind of tradition until we were trying to unify the nation in two of the biggest and earliest struggles, being the Revolutionary War and the Civil War. Think about that. During the American Revolution, Continental Congress decided to declare several days of Thanksgiving to help inspire the troops. They wanted them to be lifted so that they could be victorious in battle. And the first such day happened to fall on November 1st, 1777. Congress received news of some victories against the British and say, hey, we're going to celebrate this with a day of Thanksgiving. General George Washington also called for a day of Thanksgiving. Only 6 weeks later, on December 18, 1777, as a victory celebration for the Colonial Army win during the Battle of Saratoga that past October. Later, when George Washington became president, he issued the first formal Thanksgiving Day proclamation for the United States, setting the date for November 26, 1789. Now, while the date of November 26 fell around that of our current day holiday, Thanksgiving still failed to become an annual tradition until about 75 years later. That was when President Abraham Lincoln decided to renew the celebration in 1863 during the height of the Civil War. So even as war raged across the country, Lincoln called for a day of thanks to be held on the last Thursday in November. The day would be known as Thanksgiving, and the tradition finally became official. And for many years, the presidents who came after Lincoln kept Thanksgiving on that final Thursday of the month. But during World War II, there were 2 years in a row in which November had 5 Thursdays. That confused a lot of people, causing a lot of arguments about which date Thanksgiving would actually fall on. So in 1942, Congress passed a resolution to clarify that every 4th Thursday of November would be officially Thanksgiving Day. Now, as all veterans and active duty service members know, not everyone in the military is going to be able to stop what they're doing to celebrate Thanksgiving holiday. But the preparations have always been made to make sure that service members could celebrate in some capacity, even if they were deployed or on the battlefield. In fact, during World War I, the Red Cross and other auxiliary organizations started providing Thanksgiving aid to soldiers, while families in places like France, where our soldiers were stationed, would take them into their homes on that particular day. During World War II, boxed K rations were replaced with turkey and cranberry for the holiday. It was either shipped in by the military or collected from local farmers. Nowadays, the Defense Logistics Agency is able to ship out a traditional Thanksgiving dinner of turkey, pumpkin pie, and all the fixings to a couple of 100,000 service members across the world. Our deployed service members have also seen some commanders-in-chief roll through their bases during the holiday. President George H.W. Bush, W's father, served Thanksgiving dinner to troops stationed in Saudi Arabia in 1990. That was ahead of the Gulf War. And not to be outdone by his old man, President George W. Bush did the same in a surprise visit to Baghdad in 2003 at the height of the Iraqi war. President Barack Obama made a surprise visit to Afghanistan just after Thanksgiving holiday in 2010. So, no matter where you might be celebrating Thanksgiving weekend this year, we know that the tradition grew out of our military predecessors and their effort to bring unity to the United States. And we can all be thankful for that. So, can I have a hoo-ah, a shout-out for our deployed warriors? Hoo-ah! Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Tragically, America lost a West Virginia National Guardsman on Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving. 2 guardsmen were gunned down in a targeted shooting only 2 blocks from the White House, carrying out the mission that they were assigned to, deterring crime in our nation's capital by performing high-visibility patrols. U.S. Army Specialist Sarah Beckstrom, 20 years of age, from Summersville, West Virginia, died Thursday from gunshot wounds sustained in that attack. And U.S. Air Force Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf, 24 years of age, also of West Virginia, is still fighting for his life. Let's take a moment of silent prayer for these 2 service members, their families, their loved ones. Pray for the full recovery of Staff Sergeant Wolf. Thank you. I want to take this opportunity to announce that yesterday, yesterday, 27 November, my wife Hank and I celebrated our 49th wedding anniversary. 49 years of marital bliss. And this year, our anniversary happened to fall on Thanksgiving Day, which is quite unique in itself because we certainly have much to be thankful for. Well, since we plan to join our family for Thanksgiving Day, Hank and I elected to dine out on Tuesday evening as a quite nice restaurant in downtown Chandler in celebration of our special occasion. And while we were dining, I kept staring at this old drunken woman who was swigging on straight vodka at a nearby table. Well, since I was so obviously staring, Hank asked me if I knew the woman. I said, yes, that's my ex-wife. I said, she took to drinking right after we divorced 50 years ago, and I hear she hasn't been sober since. Hank said, my God, Dick, who would think a person could go on celebrating that long? You know, as we reflect on the history of Thanksgiving, I do have a few stories I wanted to share with you. But first, we have a few guests that I would like to introduce. As a matter of fact, visiting with us from Washington State is the grandson of Les Jones, Ben Aguila. Aguila, did I say that correctly? In Spanish, that means the eagle, correct? And Ben, will you stand up one moment? Ben, you are a college student, is that correct?
That's right.
And where are you going to school?
At the University of Washington.
And what type of program are you in there?
I'm in the Doctor of Physical Therapy program.
You intend to be a doctor of physical therapy. Hang on, Richard, if you will. Go right ahead now. So you're going to be a doctor of physical therapy.
Yes, sir.
And that transition is going to take place pretty soon, as I understand. When
Yes.
does that take place?
I graduate in June.
All right. And where do you intend to practice?
Up in the air, not undecided yet.
Well, we wish you tremendous success in transitioning to the world of work.
Thank you.
And we hope that it will be a rewarding and profitable enterprise for you. Thank you for joining us today, Ben.
Thank you very much.
You bet. And we also have Doug Newland. Doug, will you stand, please? Doug, this is your first visit here, and I believe that you are a guest of Norland. Is that correct? Norland, thank you for joining us. So you need to turn that on, partner. Have you got the switch on? And there you go. So, Doug,
Yes.
now that we've got communications, you are a United States Navy vet. What did you do in the Navy?
I was interior communications on fast attack submarines.
Well, I'll tell you what, we've been inundated with submariners here recently. We've had several come in. So you served what years?
84 to 89.
Just couldn't take it anymore under the water?
Oh, I could. I just wanted to move on.
So you were an interior communications electrician.
Yes.
So what does that mean?
We, being in submarines, we took care of the atmosphere and also all electrical forward of the reactor.
And did you use that particular training and skills in your civilian career?
Yes.
Cool.
It moved on over.
Cool. Well, we are certainly glad to have you here. You are a full-time resident here,
Yes.
and you live close to New Orleans?
Right across the street.
Then there shouldn't be any reason you guys can't carpool and get you back here again, right?
Well, unfortunately, I don't have that R word after my name, so I still work.
You know, I really do appreciate that contribution to my Social Security.
Hey, anything to help out.
Come join us again anytime.
Okay.
Thank you, Doug. We also have Jim Ronholt. Jim, where are you? Right here. Right here. Jim, you're here visiting not for the entire winter, but just for a short period, correct?
Yeah, we're just traveling through. I'm visiting relatives in town.
And you're a North Dakotan.
I'm from North Dakota. We're wintering in Yuma.
And you're wintering in Yuma.
Yep, yep.
And your intent is that I understand after speaking with you earlier that you're thinking about moving here to Mesa, correct?
Oh, you mentioned it.
I'm doing anything I can to recruit. Well, we're certainly glad to have you with us today, and join us again anytime while you're back here in this beautiful city of Mesa, Arizona.
Well, thank you very much.
Take care now. May I have a hoo-ah for these guys? Hoo-ah! Thank you. You know, as we reflect on the history of our National Day of Thanksgiving, there are a lot of stories. There's a lot of events that actually occurred on that specific day, especially as it pertains to our armed forces. Some good, some not so good, some tragic. We probably prefer to repeat the good stories versus the bad. We certainly don't want the good stories to be relegated to the shelves of a dusty library, because there are lessons to be learned from these events. But the same holds true when it comes to the more tragic stories, because again, there are lessons to be learned. Hopefully, they'll never be repeated. I'll share a few of those stories with you this morning, one being a tragic event in military history and a couple being more victorious stories. Are any of you familiar with the Phoenix Thanksgiving Day riot of 1942? Let me repeat that. The Phoenix Thanksgiving Day riot of 1942. Anybody? Well, this is one of those tragic stories that, God forbid, will never happen again. The events of the Phoenix Thanksgiving Day riot began on Thanksgiving Day, November 27, 1942. And at the time, Phoenix was experiencing an influx of soldiers as a result of World War II. One unit, the 364th Infantry Regiment, consisting of about 3,000 soldiers, was stationed at Camp Papago Park beginning June 1942. This was a segregated unit that was composed entirely of African Americans and Caucasian commissioned officers. The 364th, along with other units, trained at the Desert Training Center in preparation for combat in desert environments, with a primary focus on training for the North African Campaign. Well, during the period of 1942, members of the 364th Infantry participated in several parades in downtown Phoenix. On November 26, in celebration of Thanksgiving, infantrymen were authorized to leave Camp Papago Park. And at about 11 p.m. that night, Thanksgiving Eve, an off-duty soldier from the 364th Infantry Regiment became drunk at the Alhambra Bar located at the corner of 12th Street and Washington Street in Phoenix. A black female patron got into an argument with a soldier and slapped him. It was reported that the soldier responded by hitting the woman with a bottle. Military police officers from the all-black 733rd Military Police Unit stationed at the nearby fairgrounds were called to the scene. They tried to arrest the soldier, but he resisted and brandished a knife. One military police officer fired his weapon and wounded the infantryman. A crowd formed outside the bar, including civilians and soldiers from the 364th Infantry Regiment. The other military policemen fired a shot into the air to try and disperse the crowd. A second round was shot into the ground, but the bullet ricocheted and struck and wounded a soldier of the 364th in the leg. Well, early morning on Thanksgiving Day, some of the soldiers returned to camp and told what was reported to be an exaggerated account of the incident and then armed themselves. They piled into a military vehicle headed back into town, and by one account, soldiers dispersed from the vehicle firing handguns, rifles, and automatic weapons. Numerous soldiers from the 733rd Military Police Unit were ordered to the Camp Papago Arsenal. They were issued weapons and ammunition. In the clash between the soldiers of the 364th Infantry Regiment and the 733rd MP Unit, which was reinforced by Phoenix police, resulted in a riot. Phoenix police officer Leon Thomas was walking his beat headed down 16th Street. He was pinned down by the surrounding gunfire. He laid in the street for 4 hours playing dead to avoid being shot. Many soldiers of the 364th Infantry Regiment dispersed and hid inside homes of nearby residents. Soon after, other military police personnel from the 733rd MP Unit arrived in armored vehicles and began hunting for those soldiers involved. Phoenix police cordoned off 28 blocks in the Phoenix neighborhood. MPs went door to door looking for men who had been involved in the firefight, shooting into houses where they believed they were hiding. The gunfire went on for hours. The MP armored vehicles pulled up in front of one home, used a loudspeaker to call on anyone inside to surrender. When soldiers didn't respond, the 733rd Military Police used 50 caliber machine guns to blast holes the size of a fist in the house. By the end of the night, there were actually 3 soldiers of the 364th Infantry Regiment that were killed and 11 others wounded. Phoenix police officer George Haynes had a toe shot off. Several days after the riot, possibly due in part to the riot, the military declared Phoenix off limits for all military personnel, prompting a reform movement from local business leaders. More than 200 men of the 364th Infantry were arrested and held in jail for a week before being released back to their unit. 15 soldiers were court-martialed for disobeying orders, mutiny, and inciting a riot. They received federal prison sentences for up to 50 years. Private Joseph Siff of the 364th Infantry was sentenced to death, but President Franklin Roosevelt intervened and had his sentence commuted. The 364th Infantry was later relocated from Phoenix to Camp Van Dorn, Mississippi, and then to the Aleutian Islands off the coast of Alaska, where they spent the latter part of World War II on security duty. During the period of 1945, the unit was based on Amchitka Island in southwest Alaska, where it was reported that they repulsed several Japanese attacks. Now, the Phoenix Thanksgiving Day riot was no doubt a tragic event, and one that could possibly have been easily avoided. Regretfully, serious mistakes were made by everyone involved in the incident: the soldiers, the civilians, the military police, and the Phoenix Police Department. Now, there were countless lessons to be learned from the incident, and it demonstrates how quickly and how easily a single act of aggression between two people can get completely out of control. What a tragedy to occurred on that day of Thanksgiving. Phoenix Thanksgiving Day riot, 1942. Who would have ever thought that this could have happened here at our own doorstep? Nobody ever heard about that. Interesting story. Here's another. Were we to skip forward a couple of years from the Thanksgiving Day event of 1942 here in Phoenix and transpose ourselves to the European theater, we would find ourselves right in the middle of one of the longest battles in United States history. During the 3-month period of 19 September to 16 December 1944, almost 3 months, U.S. forces were deeply engaged in the R.E.D forest situated in western Germany, close to the Belgian border. Commanded by Major General Courtney Hodges, the Allied forces' intent was to rapidly push through Germany's fortified defenses. But the 1st U.S. Army struggled with very harsh conditions, including dense forest and entrenched German positions, resulting in a series of grueling battles and extremely intense fighting. In fact, the Battle of R.E.D Forest is known for being one of the longest battles ever fought by U.S. forces. The battle was significant for its high cost in American casualties, totaling 33,000, which substantially weakened the Allied front before the Battle of the Bulge that began on 16 December 1944, ending on 25 January 45. It was also the longest battle of World War II that occurred on German soil, resulting in the Allied capture of the Roer River dams, which was necessary to prevent German flooding and enable a later advance into the heart of Germany. And although the American forces were victorious, the battle demonstrated the brutality and the cost of urban warfare. And it's considered one of the most difficult and controversial campaigns of World War II. Now, although no formal Thanksgiving celebration took place on the front lines, American troops serving in rear echelons did receive special holiday meals to maintain morale morale being a rarity during that 3-month struggle. There's one other military operation that occurred on Thanksgiving Day that I'll share with you that also has a happy ending. MACV-SOG, full name, Military Assistance Command Vietnam, Studies and Observation Group. Are you familiar with the name? This was a top secret American force established in 1964. For simplicity, we will refer to them as SOG. The group was made up of elite voluntary troops from every branch of the United States military, including Green Berets, Navy SEALs, CIA operatives, specially trained Marines, and Air Force commandos, along with local Vietnamese fighters. Special operators who volunteered and were selected for service in SOG had to sign a non-disclosure agreement that prevented them from discussing any aspects of their operations for 20 years. They were also instructed not to reveal their assignments to anyone, including parents, spouses, siblings, and friends. For all matters and purposes, they were just another GI fighting communism in the jungles and rice paddies of Vietnam. SOG fought its secret war in Vietnam for 8 years, 1964 through 1972, and out of the more than 3 million Americans who deployed to Vietnam, only 2,000 troops served in the covert outfit, 1 in 1,500 troops in Vietnam. Of those 2,000 commandos, only 500 actually ran operations and raids across the fence. It was and still remains a frightfully small group of warriors. SOG teams fought against all odds, against an enemy who always enjoyed a numerical advantage that sometimes exceeded a ratio of 1 to 1,000. From 1964 through 1967, SOG's mission was primarily small team, cross-border strategic reconnaissance. But early in 1968, that mission changed to tactical harassment of the Ho Chi Minh Trail, which was the primary resupply route for the North Vietnamese Army. SOG's objectives were to gather strategic intelligence, destroy or harass enemy formations, and sabotage their installations and activities. Throughout 1968, special ops teams conducted hundreds of highly classified clandestine missions, primarily cross-border operations into Laos, Thailand, and Cambodia. Objective: to disrupt the North Vietnamese Army's supply lines along the trail. Operations were conducted under the code name Operation Prairie Fire. In the months following the 1968 Tet Offensive that began on January 30 and ended on September 23, 3 NVA divisions had gone missing. Someone needed to find out where they were. The 1st, 3rd, and 7th North Vietnamese Army divisions, totaling a staggering 30,000 or so troops, and were part of a 100,000-strong force that the Americans had been keeping an eye on. 30,000 went missing. When they went missing along the Cambodian border, the concern was that they were preparing to launch an attack on Saigon. So on Thanksgiving Day, 1968, a six-man SOG team called Spike Team Idaho, led by John Stryker Meyer, were delivered a Thanksgiving feast of turkey, gravy, mashed potatoes, cranberry, and rolls. Then, a helicopter arrived to deliver the team approximately 6 miles into Cambodia, after which they had to proceed on foot. Their mission? Locate the 3 missing NVA divisions of approximately 30,000 men in the Cambodian jungle and report the enemy's location to headquarters. Once on foot, didn't take long for the team to notice smoke, which they confirmed was from an enemy soldier's encampment. The camp appeared empty. So the SOG commanders began taking photographs, searching for potentially important documents. It appeared as though they'd successfully completed their mission and completed it rather quickly. However, unbeknownst to them, they just walked into the middle of a 30,000-strong NVA encampment. Almost immediately, the North Vietnamese troops began to close in from both sides before opening fire. The SOG team planted a claymore mine and ran for it. The enemy followed close behind. But Spike Team Idaho fired back, throwing grenades, setting up tripwire claymores wherever possible. The team's salvation came in the form of a United States Air Force Huey helicopter operated by the Air Force's 20th Special Operations Squadron. The helicopter opened fire on the advancing enemy. They were using M60 machine guns and M134 miniguns. The helicopter was able to make it to the rendezvous point, and the 6 men dove into the chopper as quickly as possible, setting up a final claymore on the outskirts of the landing zone. John Meyer, head of the operation, later described the mad dash, stating, "We had been moments away from a very violent death, and we killed an untold number of NVA soldiers who continued to earn our undying respect. Took no pleasure in killing the enemy. It was simply us or them." Now, although a little worse for wear, Spike Team Idaho was successful in their mission. And the very first thing the team did when they returned to base was to visit the mess hall for a second, well-deserved Thanksgiving dinner. They had no more than scarfed down that second dinner when they were tracked down by the SOG officer who had sent them on the mission. The officer requested that they join him for yet another Thanksgiving feast and provide him with an after-action report. John Meyer and team obliged and debriefed the officer over the well-earned third Thanksgiving meal. True story. I have a couple of announcements. Just as a reminder, we have guest speakers coming up for December 5, December 12, December 19. Please, if at all possible, plan to attend, support those speakers. I know that they'll be spending a lot of time preparing for their presentations here. Also, regarding our Red Friday custom printed shirts, if you wish to place an order, you can get with me directly after the meeting. I'll be happy to take your order form. Those of you that may be waiting delivery of your shirts, You're going to have to wait till Barry McDonald returns next Friday. Barry and Kelly have been out of state, but he'll be back on track and processing orders next week. I'm sure that he turned in orders a couple of weeks ago before he left, so those orders should be ready for delivery. I do have some order forms up here if you need to place an order today. And a final reminder, please leave your name badges at the greeting desk whenever you depart the building. To our guests, thank you for joining us today. We sincerely hope that you will return and share in our camaraderie. Please know that you'll always be welcome here at our Red Friday program. And as a final reminder, let's not overlook the importance of Red Friday mission to keep our deployed warfighters in our thoughts and prayers and to continue to demonstrate our support for these fine men and women. Thank you. Enjoy your Thanksgiving weekend.